are you listening to? Straight Talk with Kim and Carolyn.
Welcome to Straight Talk with Kim and Carolyn. We've got another great episode tonight. We're going to talk about election integrity and some other really great things.
Yeah. I think not everybody in the state believes in election integrity because we're perfect, no need to look at anything. But we and beyond this, yes, we also have a discussion with Jen Brown, who has a new organization, Utah Citizens for the Constitution. So that will be interesting. She's doing a lot of things. She's busy as can be.
Yeah, definitely great. Okay, so we're going to bring on Representative Mike Petersen from Logan area, Cache County area, a freshman that's already just hitting the ground running
Yes.
and doing exciting things. So election integrity, not to be confused with, are you accusing anybody of cheating, or are you where are you on this? What was your impetus for this bill?
Yeah.
So, no, I'm not accusing anyone of cheating. What I am saying is, this is the system we have in place.
Yep.
Let's do all we can to make sure that election integrity is prevalent. The folks, the voters, can feel confident. One of the things I notice is there's a lot of voter apathy, and I think part of that happens because they're not so sure that elections really matter, or that their votes really matter. So I just think we got to do some things to make sure that.
I think a good way to describe it is there definitely is, whether everything that's been in the media the last year about the machines, about harvesting, about whatever's out there, regardless of any of that, or regardless of what you think or believe in. We have a crisis of confidence in our country, in our elections. There's absolutely a crisis of confidence. And it's a no-brainer to say, let's do things that shore up that confidence and restore that confidence, and having reliable integrity in our elections is a no-brainer, and nobody opposes that, right? Your bill's sailing.
Well, that you're exactly right, Kim, and that's why. So I have HB 67, and I'll tell you how it came about, but I'll tell you this to start. Yeah, it passed through the government operations with a unanimous vote to pass on to the House, and in the House it got a unanimous vote because it is so simple. This is the bill, HB 67. It's called voter roll maintenance. So I was a little surprised to discover that in state statute, we tell county clerks some things that they can do, some actions that they can take to make sure that the voter rolls are maintained. But there's nothing in there that says how often they ought to follow those processes, take those steps. So I got a son who's just going to turn 20. When he moved out of our house after he graduated from high school, went up to Idaho Falls, got a job, and I got his next ballot. And then I got his next ballot, and then I got his next ballot, and that just seemed, for me.
Did he get a ballot? Did he also receive a ballot where he was living? Okay.
No, he did not, because he never registered up there in Idaho, but we were still getting his ballots, and that was a little bit surprising for me.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have been surprising, but it was a little, it did something to my confidence. So that's when I discovered, that the rolls aren't maintained the way I would have thought that they could or should have been. So I sat down with our county clerk and said, hey, what's going on here? And we discovered that we could make a bill that would improve maintenance. But then as we talked, I said, I think I had one of the ballots. I held it up. I said, hey, Jess, what am I supposed to do with this ballot that keeps coming to our house? I just tear them up and throw them away because I don't know what to do with them. And he said, well, Mike, you should get them back to us. That way we'll know that, your son's moved away. Well, that led to the second piece of the bill, which is that there needs to be something on the envelope that tells the family or whoever's living in that residence, if the person's not living there, send it back. Some instructions as to what to do with it, so we could again clean up the rolls a little bit. It's not going to make the rolls perfect. I know that, but if we can improve things a few percentage points,
Yeah.
I think it's worth the effort.
So it's not putting it on the public to be responsible to clean the voter rolls, but it does help. I mean, so everybody's got mail that doesn't belong there. So, to do the return to sender or, so that should be helpful. So I have a story that I haven't had the opportunity to share with you, but soon after 2020 elections, I went with a group of Utahns, I guess about 30 of us. We went to Nevada, to Clark County, and their elections were kind of being disputed, and they were still waiting for the canvass and the certification. And so we were invited to just go help. And so I was given a list. It was a pretty long list. I mean, there's no way. There were like 40,000 voters that had these red flags. Ballots, I should say, that had red flags. So we just grabbed a batch and kind of went out in the community and started knocking doors. And I will tell you, with over 98% of every door I knocked on was that person didn't live there, hadn't ever lived there, hadn't lived there for years. And one good example, I knocked on a guy's door and he says, wait, we bought this house 7 years ago. And, I know the guy, we bought it from a family member, but he's lived in California for 7 years. How is he casting a ballot from California? And this guy was angry. And so, because he's like, I know how he would vote too. So he pretty much canceled my vote. So he said, I'm going to call him. And so I gave the guy my number and he texted me back after a while, because we went out and knocked more bad, fraudulent doors. And he texted and he said, yep, I just talked to him. He said, absolutely. He's been voting every year from California. And he says, that should be illegal. And I said, it is illegal. But I will tell you, I spent, 2 days on doors, and every last door, the person never lived there, hadn't lived there forever. And so when you get to Nevada, where a large election was won by 35,000 votes, and our list of just 40, and there was a bigger list of suspicious votes, but for our particular project, so to speak, there are 40,000. And we all had the same experience. We all came back and went, wow, every door is fraudulent. And all of a sudden you're in a margin that affected an impact, or that affected an outcome.
You asked me at the beginning if I was accusing anybody, and I'm not. But I will say this: I've talked to Utah residents all over the state, and ours is not a unique experience. A lot of people have had similar things where ballots from someone who's passed away or passed on has arrived at their house, and so and I know that there's some counties that have done this better than others, and so again. I think when we see that it passed through the committee and it passed through the House, not a single, I don't think I even got a question. It's just a no-brainer. Yeah. Let's do some things to clean things up. Now, I do have another. I don't want to talk about it now, but I do have another election integrity bill that's going to tighten up some of these things a little bit further as well. But
maybe do we have time to share? Maybe okay.
Is it not public yet?
Not public yet.
Okay. So
we're going to have.
Moment, though.
Okay, we'll have this conversation another time. Here's what I want to ask you about this bill. So, does it outline the actual process that clerks need to take in order to clean up these rolls? And if so, what is that?
So, if you look at lines 30 through or 29 through about 40. The clerk shall remove a voter's name from the official register if the voter dies and the requirements in subsection 3 are met. The county clerk, anyway, it just goes through some very simple. That when you read this, you're like, of course they should have been doing this. The county clerk has obtained evidence that the voter's residence has changed, mailed notice to the voter as required by section 20, blah blah blah, and received no response from the voter, or not received information that confirms the voter's residence. It's just some simple things that we should be doing. I purposely, I didn't add anything that was onerous. I didn't add any new ones because I wanted to at least move the needle a couple of points
Yeah. Yeah.
that I knew no one would object to. And then, and it wouldn't cost anything, because when I first talked about this, the clerks were a little bit frustrated about, because I did have some suggestions that were going to cost, and I thought, you know what, let's just move it a few points, and we'll work on some additional bills that might cost a little bit more, but let's make sure we get something at least to get started.
Yeah. So you said this bill does not give them a time period, right? So they just do it when they feel like they need to, or all along the way. What?
So, good question. So right now, in state statute, it just tells them the steps to take. It
Okay.
doesn't tell them when. So now my bill says 90 days before the primary and
Okay.
90 days before the general, follow each one of these steps, and then you'll be good to go.
So
Okay,
is there a process whereby, other than return to clerk on a ballot, is there a process that citizens can participate in reporting that? I mean, because I know lots of people have found things on records, reported to the clerk, and it doesn't change. So
Yeah.
does this help that, or does it enable citizens to kind of report cleaning up?
There's nothing in there to help with that.
Okay.
But it seems like if I were to report, my neighbor is on the voter rolls, but she's long gone,
It's done. Yeah.
that would be
You can do
evidence
that.
that person doesn't live there.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I will
right.
say, oh, go ahead.
It talks about that the clerks look through the newspapers, that they do some processes
Okay.
Okay.
to be aware of people that have passed away and things like that.
Okay. I do know that I had some rural county commissioners tell me a year or two ago that they had, in a very small town, it was about 1,100 people in this town, and they were told, or there was a home that an activist had moved into from out of state, and they said that within, I don't know, 6 months or whatever, I don't remember the time, there were something like 32 voter registrations out of this 2-bedroom home that an activist had moved into from California. And they reported it to the state, who refused to investigate. Now, I don't know, right? Like, this is what I heard secondhand, but from government officials who were frustrated. So are you saying that really probably the best way to handle something like that is just to go to your county clerk?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I think at this point, I think it is. I think it is to go and take evidence and make the suggestion. Yep. Because they're the ones that do maintain the voter
Yeah.
rolls, and I think you're gonna have the closest. I mean, you want to go to the place that's got the best chance of making a change.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's where it is right now.
Yeah.
so Representative Petersen, sounds like you've taken on a really significant issue as a freshman. So I kind of commend you on that, way to go on such an important issue.
And doing it successfully.
Like I say, this is my safe one. I have another one that's going to come out.
This is the safe
We're
one.
going to talk about that other one when it's out.
And by the way, Kim, because of the way things happened this year, I did the general session last January.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, but we had a special session and
That's
an
true.
extraordinary session. And not everybody can say they've been through an extraordinary session.
That's true.
Extraordinary session. Well, amazing. And sometimes they say, well, freshmen are supposed to kind of like observe, be quiet, and then you've got 2 years to make a difference. So, and thank you for making that difference and leading out on a really, really important issue and tackling our crisis of confidence in our elections. So, where can people find you? Are you active in social media, website? Where can people go to learn more about Representative Petersen and what you're working on?
My website is voteformikepetersen.com, and on Facebook it is Restore Your Voice. But if you just search for Mike Petersen with an EN, Petersen, you'll see that there's a Representative Mike Petersen, and it's got the blue check or whatever, and
Okay.
so go ahead and sign up.
Well, great.
Okay, perfect.
Well, thank you
We'd
so
love that.
much.
Your inquiries. So
Yes,
bet.
thank you
Well-
for joining us.
Best wishes with your
Hey.
legislation.
thank you. Nice to talk with you tonight.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, so much work to do. I think that Amelia Powers Gardner really led a couple years ago, back in, 2018, between 2018 2020, on cleaning the voter
Yeah.
rolls. Like that was
Yeah.
a big initiative of hers when she was the Utah County Clerk. And now she's gone on to be the county commissioner, and Josh Daniels is now the clerk. Same mission, just kind of tightening things in Utah County. So they're really, some of that work that Amelia did, and Josh as her deputy, got her national recognition for bringing that more
Yeah.
efficiency and cleaner rolls to Utah County.
But I have to tell you, I've been disturbed by some of the comments that I've heard and read in some articles. And one of those comments is, we don't want people to not have confidence in our elections, so stop talking about it.
Okay, yeah, because that's what restores
Yeah,
confidence
that's-
is when you're told to stop talking about
stop
it.
talking about it.
Yeah.
Because people had full confidence until you started thinking you should pass legislation that would make our elections more secure.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Th-
and,
th-
and unfortunately, there has been some effort in the last year plus to label people as
Yeah.
crazy if they question.
Yeah.
And I think, it's our duty to question
Yeah.
all the performance of government,
Yeah.
wherever it is. Right now we're questioning the active legislative session, and that's a duty. It's a responsibility, but it's also a privilege to be able to watch our government and have some expectations for it in its performance, because it serves us. So,
and watch over the process to ensure that we feel comfortable with it.
Right.
Whatever that is.
right.
So whether it be elections or whether it be votes on the House or Senate floor,
Exactly.
we have the right to watch over that and ensure that the laws are being followed.
Right.
Or that people are doing their best to have transparency with whatever they're doing in government.
And again, like he emphasized, it doesn't mean you're saying anything went
That's
wrong
correct.
or that anybody cheated, or we should always be looking for efficiencies, always be looking to shore up integrity,
Yeah.
always creating more confidence in our government, and not less.
Yeah.
So
Even though I think Stacey Abrams still thinks she won in Georgia. So,
Jeez.
anyway.
Oh my gosh. Well, we have on next. Tell us about.
Yeah,
Who do we have
so
next?
we'll be talking with Jen Brown next.
Okay.
As I mentioned, Utah Citizens for the Constitution. She is looking to build an organization that meets together, discusses, and works legislatively as well on different initiatives that will help educate people and educate legislators and pass good policy in preserving our system of government and respecting the Constitution.
Okay.
So next we have Jen Brown, who is the head of Utah Citizens for the Constitution. She in the Davis County area, has a number of people who are working with her on her board. I'm one of them. She has two different organizations. And I think, Jen, you should talk to us a little bit about that. But you tell us about what the genesis was of this. You're a busy mom, 5 young children, right? And you're a dentist. And you have found the time to really devote a decent amount of time and energy to this endeavor because it's important to you.
Well, and it's sort of it seems like it's the year of the activist mom.
Yes.
Yeah,
true.
so many things that have happened in the last year or so, 2 years really, where moms dads too, have said, yeah, no, I gotta do something.
Yeah.
I gotta do something. So
So tell us about the genesis of this and kind of what drove you to this point.
Yes, well, I have been involved in politics and public policy for quite a long time now, for about 12 years. And how I got into this was actually the work I have done and continue to do with protecting children. And I feel really strongly about protecting them from influences like pornography and the sexualization of the youth. And that's what I got started on about 12 years ago. And I still work very closely within that area. I just barely worked with Elder Arnold that passing a bill last session that had to do with filters. And then I just went to San Diego in December to the ALEC meeting where we talked about that bill there. So that's what got me started all those years ago. And then as I just continued to meet people and work with legislation, I learned the process. I learned how it works here in Utah. I just naturally started to move out into other directions too, including, liberty areas, working on the Constitution and things like that. And so a lot of them just go together for freedom and protection of our individual liberties. So then I became the president of United Women's Forum, which was a group in Bountiful, and I met a lot of people by being president of that group. And then I became president of Davis County Republican Women. And then this last summer, I just started having a lot of ideas. I had a gentleman call me that was really concerned about things going on, and we started talking once a week about things that we could do and ideas we had. And from those conversations, we decided about starting this organization. And then here we are. And I feel very strongly about it. I feel that it's what I'm supposed to be doing at this time. And I'm putting forth my very best effort on its behalf.
So a foundation in studying the Constitution and that just seems like the no-brainer, right? That's where you start. And if it's a matter of getting back to that or understanding it better, why do you feel like that's so important for this time that people get back to constitutional roots?
So the reason that we are really focusing on the structure of the Constitution is because it protects our individual liberty. And so Carolyn knows I was up at the Capitol this morning and we were working on Bill HB 209, but it talks about federalism and this balance between the federal government and the state governments, and that is supposed to be kept in check, that the states are supposed to be managing many areas that the federal government has intruded into, and it's certainly happened over decades and decades, and by both political parties. But a lot of most people do not know which are state jurisdictions and which are federal jurisdictions. And so something that's unique about our organization is that we not only focus on citizens, but we also are putting a really high attention to elected officials at all levels of government, from city all the way up to the state, where we are seeking to reach out to them and really talk to them about these issues so that they're looking through the lens of these jurisdictions when they're talking about policy. Because the very first thing anybody should ask themselves is, whose jurisdiction is this? Mm-hmm. And even if it's a good idea, if it's not within that proper jurisdiction, then the answer needs to be no. And we have to redo this then. But those jurisdictions, we call them lines of liberty, they really matter. And so we're focusing a lot on elected officials as well as citizens.
Okay, so a lot of attention this year on some education policies. So that is a common citation of where the federal government should not have jurisdiction, but has so much. And so what would you say about that as an example?
Yeah.
Public education.
Oh yes. So that is just a huge example of it. So it's been quite a few years. I'd have to look up the year it was where they decided on Common Core, but the problem with Common Core was that it just opened the door to allowing the federal government into the state of Utah. And so since then, we are reaping the results of that decision. And the federal government is seeking to control every aspect of education. And I just barely found an article that I saved that had to do with the current administration, their federal economic policy. And they said in that article, we do not want the term mother or father used in the public schools. It's just absolutely insanity. And so part of this bill that we are working on, that we're still hoping that we're going to be able to have success with this session, HB 209, it sets up a Federal Reserve Fund where money is placed into that account to prepare to make Utah more sovereign, or to be able to cut federal strings. And this is the perfect example why, is that this money that they say they're giving to us, first of all, they either take it from the states or they print it. The federal government doesn't create any of its own money. And so that's another thing that citizens need to really think about and be cognizant of. Mm-hmm. But if we're able to put some money aside, it can put Utah into a position where we will be able to cut some of those strings with the federal government and say, no, we're going to decide ourselves how we manage education in the state of Utah. And that is what the Constitution intended. That is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So aside from money, okay, and Representative Ken Ivory is running that legislation, that 209. But years ago, he actually passed legislation. I think it might have been with Senator Deidre Henderson at the time, if I'm correct. But it asked every agency and every division of government in the state to start to study how dependent are you on federal funds, how much of your budgets come from federal funds, so that if that spigot ever shuts off, then we're prepared. Mm-hmm. So this seems like it's kind of the next logical step is, okay, now let's start reserving funds in case of that event. But other than the financial piece, what do you think Utah's elected officials, especially, I would say, the governor, the Attorney General's office, can do to protect sort of that separation of, that federalism?
Money is the biggest component of it, because the way the federal government controls the states is through money. They say we'll give you this hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, and then, but of course, then with that comes those stipulations. But as I've talked to Representative Ivory about, there are different powers that the states have to push back against the federal government. And one is just speaking more about it, bringing it up more. And that's why just studying the issue, let's keep track of when the federal government's crossing that line, is important. But the second one is collaborating with other states. And so that is something that we're hoping that if this bill can pass, which we're going to have to see if that is able to happen, that we can go to other states and talk to them about this Federalism Commission and how it's keeping track of the overreach of the federal government, and that we can work with other states to set up this similar organization in their state. And then the Federalism Commissions in each state can start to collaborate and communicate with each other more. Just being organized and communicating with each other, the states, that right there is very, very powerful. And that is what we're not doing very well, that there's a lot of room for improvement there. And that's why the systematic approach that we're trying to get set up here in Utah is so important. Because, I mean, if we can lead the way and show other states how to do it, there's going to be a really a lot of potential and possibilities with that. But there's also litigation, of course, where you can sue the federal government. And our Attorney General, Sean Reyes, he is really doing a lot of work in this area. We thank him for his work, and he is filing a lot of lawsuits trying to push back against the federal government. So there's different prongs of attack that we can take, and we want to make sure that we're utilizing all the options that are there.
Yeah, and I did see recently that the AG had been asking for, I think it was $2 million in additional funds, so that they can hire the staff that they need in order to fight back where appropriate on federal overreach. So it seems like we've been pretty good, and I think it ebbs and flows depending on who is in leadership, depending on who is in the body. But we have been pretty good about saying all the right things. But when it comes to dedicating the money to the cause, I think it's been a little trickier. But I would like to point out in HB 209 that the way, like the money that's set aside in the rainy day fund, if we do need to self-finance some things that currently we rely on the federal government for, that is just excess money, right? It's a percentage, I think it was 25% of excess money.
Was.
So this does not
surplus.
have an impact on current programs and current funding.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
So
That's
I do
exactly
think, yeah, to Kim's point earlier, I think this is the logical next step, right? It's time to really do a deep analysis and to move further. So I have a question for you, Jen. What is your vision for this organization on a statewide level?
So what I want to do next that I'm going to be working on is the state is already divided into House districts. So that would be members that are elected representatives that serve in the House of Representatives. And so I would like from each representative district, House district, to get what we are going to call them our Constitution Councils, and to get a chair for each of the districts. And then I'm going to try to start with a council of 20 members in each district across the whole state. And these are people that are a little more dedicated, but they don't have to do very much. It's just going to be one Zoom call a month. And I will be compiling information to share with them, to educate with them. And hopefully if this bill passes, I'll be able to use the information that is being collected and given to the Federalism Commission. And then what we're asking these individuals is to make a phone call, a text, or an email just once a week as we give them information and things that we're going to be focusing on. And there needs to be more of a feeling of this is just part of my citizen duty. Once a week, I can send that communication once a week to my representatives, and that it's just simply what we must do to maintain our country. And so we want to, that's my goal, is to start there, and then of course to hope to just keep building. But the first thing I'm going to do is get my chair in each House district. That is what I'm going to really be working on here in the future.
Great. So tell us what other legislation you are watching or working on this year as an organization.
Some of the other pieces of legislation that we are watching closely is HB 60, which was also in committee this afternoon, because the main theme of our mission statement is to educate and defend the principles of the Constitution, protect individual liberty, and ensure election integrity. And so the prohibition of vaccine passports, that's important for us because that has to do with individual liberty. And that is the very purpose of government, is to protect that personal, individual natural rights. And so we've been watching that one, and then everything that has to do with the elections. And I've also been helping in the ballot petition. I've been gathering signatures and trying to do my part to help with that. And we have also been watching the election bills. I found a really good article that analyzed ranked choice voting and did a very good nonpartisan analysis of the shortcomings and the concerns over ranked choice voting. I sent that to all of the legislators, and we were able to stop that from moving forward. But a real easy way to understand why ranked choice voting is problematic is that it is difficult to go back and audit. And so auditing is such a fundamental part of election integrity that we want an audit process that can be done efficiently and effectively right after an election if need be. And so that is a big problem with the ranked choice voting.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing on all of these different issues. Kim, are there any other things that you are curious about here?
So just how do people find you? How do they get involved? What can they expect if they get involved in your organization?
Well, and that's just like I said, we're still pretty new. I just barely got us the board finalized and organized. But the other thing that I'm going to really start working on after the session over is getting our website built. And so, and at that point, we're going to also really be trying to work on these legislative districts of the state. So perhaps if that is a possibility, I could come back at some time in the future when our website is available, and that will make it easier for people to get involved and to join with us. And I'll be a little bit farther down in this process, and we will be ready to really start gathering the citizens of Utah. But we are absolutely determined that we are going to find citizens from all corners of the state, and we are going to work together, and we're going to make a difference. And so I will have more information coming, and I hope that the listeners will be preparing themselves to join with us.
Well, can we find you on social media at least? Where do we find you there?
Yep. Utah Citizen for the Constitution on social media. So we're on several of the platforms.
Okay.
So.
Same name on all platforms?
Utah Citizen. Yep. If they go in and look for Utah Citizen. So
great.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.
Like I said,
Thank
we
you
appreciate
so
the
much.
work you're doing. Yeah.
Thank you to both of you. All right. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye, Jen.
Bye.
Yeah, there really are a lot of people doing a lot of things. I think you go up to the Capitol, it's not like it's been in past years. It truly isn't. And I love to see the level of engagement that's going on with the public.
Some things are physically different on the Capitol since COVID happened and they expanded sizes of rooms and eliminated some of the common areas. I think that's an unfortunate change.
Yes, I do too.
Because it used to be that there was a very large open cafeteria space where you really could meet, you could connect with other organizations, other meetings. And in fact, a while ago, there was a funny map of who occupies where. Equal Forum is here, Libertas is here, UEA is there, and everybody where everybody was. But it was very easy to connect.
Yes.
And now, there's just little small spaces, and I think that's an unfortunate change.
Yeah, it truly is.
Because the people don't have a congregating area of the Capitol anymore like they used to.
I met a lot of people for the first time in the cafeteria, right?
Yeah.
Because they were sitting at a table with somebody I knew, and we'd have a conversation. It really was a good place to connect. And
I wish that they were going to get rid of that they would have replaced it with something. And there's really nothing in that. It's an accessibility thing, too. I mean, as a
totally
lawmaker,
agree.
I always like to just go to the cafeteria and connect with people.
See who's there.
I didn't want to always just walk the halls with legislators. I wanted to go mingle with the people, and they were always there. And
That's right.
That space is gone.
There's not a place like that anymore.
yeah.
So, but I do. People are there. People are involved. People are paying attention to the issues, and it's good to see. So we are going to wrap up this podcast. This is our ninth. It's our ninth. It's been fun. So you can find us, Straight Talk with Kim and Carolyn, on Facebook, on YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts. And am I missing anything?
No,
Rumble,
just like
Rumble,
yeah,
Rumble.
We're
Thank you.
everywhere, and then we
We
have
are
individual
everywhere.
social media accounts like Getter and places like that. But
And I will say, 8th episode, and I've had 2 people just in the past 3 days come and introduce themselves to me because of the podcast.
recognize.
So I love to see people watching, or listening. So we will see you all next time. Thanks for joining us.